David, JBL have sent me another thing for you.
Another thing. I love goodies every week, mate.
You get another goodie, and I'm giving this one to you. This one you'll like because this is waterproof. It's the Clip 4. You can clip it onto things. You know what you can clip it onto? You can clip it onto your lawnmower. Pump some tunes.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Sound of your big ass lawnmower that you ride around in. Those legends over at JBL. TPATC25 is 25% off code for us.
Love that, mate. 10 hours of viewing time, 10 hours of battery time.
That's it. Well, also thank you to our legends at Colonial sponsoring us as always. Had a pale ale the other night.
Ooh, love that.
Get yourself some Colonial beers and enjoy the podcast.
For those of you who may not know,
It's pros and cons time.
Mr. Smith,
Hey, who's that? David Zacka Parker Ruckus.
wrong.
How the bloody hell do you say that?
Pros and cons.
What is going on, everybody?
Daniel, how are you?
Good, mate. How you going?
Yeah, very well.
Pros and the cons, back.
Yes.
It feels good to be back 1 week after the other.
Yes, we're back on our routine and normal schedule. It's
Yeah.
great. Who have we got today, mate?
Huge guest. Zooming in, the greatest of all time in Australian basketball history.
I heard you've created a big list and you're pretty nervous to read it out.
It's so big. Like Andrew Gaze is here. Gazy,
Yes.
legend
Yes.
of the Australian basketball and one of my favourite players of all time.
Yes.
And yeah, his accomplishments.
Well, we'll save the resume.
I'm not going to read it.
You're not going to read it out
The
now.
most accomplished human being that will ever be on this podcast.
Yes.
There's no one who's won more things, done more things.
And he's very up and about. I love hearing him and seeing him on TV. He's
So passionate.
one of the most passionate humans you can meet. So
He's a legend. He's got a lot of stories. He's been to America. He's played. He's a very unconventional career pathway.
Yes.
And not that there's that many conventional ones these days, but really keen to chat to him. And
keen to chat to him about the NBL too, the state of the game. So it's a very interesting time at the moment. It's kind of going back to a little bit of a boom.
Yeah.
So it'll be good.
Yeah, let's get straight into it because we really want to smash out this episode with Gazy. So enjoy.
How you going?
Yeah, going really well. How you guys doing?
Good, mate. Good.
Hey,
Thanks
good.
for jumping on.
No, well, I'd come in, but I play golf on Wednesday morning. That's why I'm sort of doing golf.
love
gear on.
that.
Yeah, good.
I play golf, so it was going to be a little hard to get there.
No, that's all right.
Get in there.
is
But,
How do you hit him, Gazy? How do you hit him?
I normally hit him well. I was really bad today, though. Really, really bad. But but I'm not great. I've got an official handicap of 17 or 16.8 or something like that. So
Yep.
I'm not very good. I'm only sort of getting into it. I play once a week.
Where do you play?
I play 1.5 times a week. I play at Mount Derrimut,
Yep.
which is in Sunshine.
Yeah, all the boys, a lot of boys in the footy club play there.
Yeah, I do. I
Yes.
see a few of them out there.
Yes.
Um,
Jake Stringer, Dev
Yes,
Smith.
he's
Yes.
actually very good.
Dev's off, I think, 1 or 2 now. He's trying to become a PGA coaching pro.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
no, Jake, I see him out there, and the guy that runs it out there, Jeff Ross, he teaches them all. He tries to help me out a bit, but
Well,
I'll-
Gazy, you can play with me anytime, mate. With that handicap, we'll get along real well.
yeah, no, I'm
that's
not
about
very
how I
good
swing
at
it
all.
as well.
But well, I love it. I really do enjoy it. And we play on Fridays just at Albert Park.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
But that's usually just 9 holes with just 3 of my old teammates. And just
Yes.
it's more of an excuse to catch up and then go to brekkie.
Yes.
Yeah, love it.
So it's it's like that. But no, it's good. I enjoy it. I'm determined to get better. And
Aren't we all every time?
it gets me. It's really got me. But I had a real setback today. But that's
Oh no! You know what you need, Gazy? I'm gonna shameless plug, but our sponsor Colonial Beers. Check out these
Oh.
tailor-made their session beers. I don't know if you can see that.
right.
Um,
Okay.
Yeah, but you can
Oh,
drink them all
hello. They
day.
got the tailor mate. Oh, okay.
Tailor-made.
Yeah, they made it with
They're made to be
tailor-made.
able to play 18 holes, have all day drinking them. They're only one standard drink, I think.
Well, that's probably why I'm not a drinker. So and I don't drink. Well, I don't drink beer. I've never drunk beer. So that's what it is, beer. Though.
Oh, yeah.
It is beer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no
well,
use
that's
to
not
you
going to
then.
help.
Not that I.
We'll
not
send
that
you
I
a
want
cider.
to discourage your sponsorship or hurt your sponsorship at all. But yeah. No worries. Well, I don't know a lot about what we're going to talk about, but I'm happy to whatever you want to ask me. I'm
Yep,
happy
Mate,
to.
well, it's
Yep,
just a
they're
pleasure
pretty
to have you
cool.
on, to be honest. I've got a list here, and I realised that you're probably the most accomplished human being we'll ever have on the.
No.
I've got this huge list, which is crazy because like I've been a massive fan. I was a Melbourne Tigers fan growing up,
Good.
and I think all of us.
Same,
Our
yeah.
age.
I was the same, yeah.
Our age,
Yep.
like, you know, growing up in the 90s, 80, late 80s, 90s. Well, I was born in the late 80s. So
Yep.
growing up in the 90s, watching NBL was like the biggest thing for us kids. And then we played basketball at Eltham, which was known as one of the biggest, you know, I think it was the biggest in the Southern Hemisphere club or something like that. So we all played down at Eltham.
Well, just on that, so do you know or do you remember a Kylie Brooks?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so
My word. Kylie Brooks, I think, actually worked for my dad.
Right.
Might have spent some time working with my dad. So, I do know Kylie.
So I've got, when I was under 12s playing Friday night for Eltham for Kylie Brooks. So I've got a signed Melbourne Tigers Guernsey by you personally to me.
I know, you're supposed to bring it in,
I was supposed to bring it. It was too big for the car boot, so it was...
Love it. Love it.
I've got that hanging up in one of my rooms at home. So
nice.
Signed by you to me.
Gazy, I'm going to embarrass you here, but I'm going to tell these to Dave because even though we're massive fans since the 90s, these still blew me away, these stats. You repped Australia 5 times in the Olympics. You're the flag bearer at the 2000 Olympics.
Yes.
You're NBA all-time leader in points.
NBL, but I wish it was the NBA. I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys if I was the all-time leader in the NBA.
We'll cut that. NBL all-time leader in points, assists, field goals made, three-pointers made, free throws made. NBL's highest single-season points game average. 7 of the top 10 highest scoring averages in a single season. 7 times NBL MVP, 15 times All NBL first team, 14 times
in a row too.
I'm just going to take a breath for a second. Hang on. 14-time
Come
NBL
on, wrap it up.
NBL scoring champion.
No, let him go. Keep him going.
2-time NBL championship ring, an NBA championship ring, inducted into the basketball. We'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame, the Sport Australia Hall of Fame, and the FIBA Hall of Fame. Was made a member of the Order of Australia. Just to throw that one in. And the certified GOAT of Australian.
Did you say
basketball.
FIBA's 50 greatest players in 1991?
No, I didn't because I ran out of paper.
That's it. Yes.
Ran out of battery writing all of your comments.
No, that's true. Well, you've probably missed out. You've also left out after reading all that. You've left out something very important that's very dear to me, and that is Final Four in Australia's #1 dance competition, Dancing with the Stars.
You know
Dancing
what?
with the Stars.
That's true.
Well,
Damn, Wikipedia didn't give me the.
I'm actually in a bit of going through a tough spell because I've read that the Dancing with the Stars All Stars is about to start up and no invitation.
Didn't make the cut.
No invitation forthcoming. So that is a setback.
It's just a shattering moment in Australian TV history.
Yes. No, but no, I enjoyed my time with dancing. I beat Thor, by the way. I beat Chris Hemsworth.
Yes.
You know, he was on there the year I was on there. So that's my claim to fame.
Yeah. If you're beating someone that looks like that, you're going very well.
Here's the thing. When we were on there, me and Hemsworth, we used to just look at Cooter and just go, have a look at the rig on this fella. Just a specimen. And then all of a sudden, some 11 years later or however long, it might even be more, 12 years later, the old Chrissy boys just got a very nice arrangement.
We had Frank Grillo, who's a Hollywood actor, on the podcast last week, who said that he would happily get in the ring with Chris as well. Yes. So we've had a few Hemsworth drops the last couple of weeks.
He has.
I don't know if you'd want to get in the ring with Chris. He's a big boy.
Big boy now. Right, really big boy.
I think he's going to be Hulk Hogan in the new movie, which is, I think, part of the beef. Beefing up.
Beefed up, yeah, right.
Gazy, you grew up around basketball. Your dad ran Albert Park.
Yes, that's right.
Which is MSAC now, right?
Well, it was, but it was on the other side of the lake. The old one, there was these old Army warehouse storage facilities that in the late 60s, they were Commonwealth Army warehouse storage facilities. They were no longer required, and the senator in that area, Senator Keneally was his name, decided to transform into sport. And there was the old, you know where the Albert Park Golf Course is, and the old Harry Trott Oval was out the back, and basketball. One of them was allocated to basketball. One of those facilities was to basketball, and the Victorian Amateur Basketball Association. My dad was the general manager of that organisation when it was started. He and another guy called Ken Watson, and basketball, in their wisdom, when they were converting that facility into a basketball stadium, they decided to build a little manager's residence that was attached. So in between what ultimately was the squash centre and the badminton centre and the basketball centre, they built this little cottage. So from the time I was born to the time I was about 14, I lived in that little cottage that was physically attached to the basketball stadium. So it was a very unique upbringing where not only did I get to play basketball every single day, in order to get it in and out of the house, I was virtually had to walk through the basketball stadium. But not only that, I got to experiment with badminton, table tennis, squash, the Harry Trott Oval out the back, and the Albert Park Golf Course. Whenever we were with your mates and we're saying, "Oh, house do we want to sleep over?" Everyone wanted to come to my joint because it was just this sporting precinct that had everything any kid had ever wanted. So for me, that was a huge advantage when I was growing up to have that type of environment where you could experiment with all those different sports.
I tell you what, though, you wouldn't want to really come over your house and just getting beaten every time. So you're playing squash, badminton, and you're just getting smashed, wouldn't you?
I was shit house at those other ones. I was no good. I was. You get in there and you have a bit of a crack, and you got to play around with it and a bit of fun, but. You know, it was really only because of that environment that when I look back, that had any chance of having success, because I'm not the most athletic. You know, I had size, which is good. I 201. I was good size, but not blistering speed. Wasn't particularly athletic. But it's only through learning the game and an IQ for the game that I was able to compensate for some of those deficiencies. And that really was only on the basis that I was around the game so often.
So what was it like then growing up? Was the tutelage you had into, say, basketball and learning the game, was that your dad, or was that someone else that mentored you into that?
Well, it was my dad. Most people think, right since I came out of the womb, that my dad was there just pounding me on the training
shots a day,
because of where we lived. But in fact, he was always there for my individual training. Like if I was shooting around the court, he'd come over and he'd work on my technique, and we'd do things kind of random. But because every single day you had that opportunity, it was a lot of it. But I honestly can't remember him ever actually coming and watching a game that I was playing in until I was under 16s. Yeah, in under 12s and the under 14s, I had Ron Anderson and I had Billy White. I had other coaches in the under 12s and under 14s. Now, I'm sure he did, but I can't remember him actually being at a game because he was coaching in the higher junior ranks and, of course, with the seniors. So he just wasn't around. And as far as being involved in team practices, not until I was probably 15 was he coaching me. So I was lucky that I played for a club and played for those early junior coaches, and in particular when I was in under 12s, a guy called Ron Anderson that was this guy that probably a little politically correct these days, because whenever you do something wrong, I can remember he'd pull you on your hair. What the hell are you doing? Doing that type of stuff. You can't do that these days. No. But he was really a disciplinarian in the fundamentals and also provided some complex schemes. These days, they roll the balls out. Yeah, they teach you the fundamentals, but they don't really throw complex offensive, defensive schemes until you're a bit older.
Yep.
Those things were introduced to me really early on, and that I think in hindsight was helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. What is the in terms of you just mentioned how coaching back then harsh. I remember when I was played cricket growing up, and I don't know, I would have been batting at like 7 or something.
Yeah.
And walking out there, and I forgot to do my laces up. I would have been like 10. and the coach
Yep.
is pushing me over while I'm trying to do my laces up, going, hurry up, hurry up.
Yep.
And the physical nature of what coaching is compared to
Yep.
what you could do now. You just mentioned how, politically correct. How do
Yep.
you think that's affecting like today's growth? And then also, I guess, double-pronged question, the fact that you have so much tools now and accessibility now to be able to be coached. How do you feel coaching is for kids?
Yeah, well, it's a lot more formalised these days from a really early age. It is in basketball. I don't know what it's like in footy, but from the time you're 8 or 9, they really start to identify the talent, and you're doing a lot of individual workouts with coaches. It's not just kids out there exploring, and I'm talking about the elite kids that we identify, or so-called elite kids, at that really early age, and they get them in proper coaching programs and where they're doing individual sessions as well as their team sessions. And it's much more regimented than it was back then. But I think that when you think of the changes that it's made in general, it's much better. The facilities that we have, the technology that they use, the video analysis, even for really young kids, they're getting right into it. And ultimately, though, I still believe that the more opportunities you just get to play, that I still think that is the foundation. That other stuff is important, of course, to develop your fundamentals and your practice, but you can learn a lot of things by doing and just by playing and having coaches that I would encourage to get with coaches that do try to provide the schemes and the understanding, because you're going to be devoting that time by yourself anyway to the basic fundamentals of your shooting, your passing, and your physical conditioning. But at a young age, I would encourage kids, or I do encourage kids to get with programs that don't just roll the balls out and say, well, let's just read and react and play. Learning, and sometimes it's hard for parents because you've got really talented kids that are thrown into a pretty rigid structure. And they're saying, why are you running him just give him the ball and get out of his way and he's going to be all right. Because you have these man children at those early ages that they're able to get away with it. But being involved in that and learning how to cut, how to screen, the positioning on the floor is just as important as putting the ball to the floor and being able to do all those other things. And sometimes that gets lost a little bit these days because they just roll the balls out and teach only individual skills rather than the complex team concepts.
Well, just on that, so obviously there's a guy, Steph Curry, who has changed the landscape of basketball completely. And with social media and access to NBA now, that young kids will be watching that going, I just want to shoot three-pointers, and I might not want to learn the fundamentals of basketball, team basketball. San Antonio Spurs, like that you played for, that was such a team game and fundamentals, and Greg Popovich tutelage. What's the challenge these days with kids being able to get them to learn that rather than going, I just want to shoot threes? Yeah.
Correct. And it's also not just the NBA, it's around the world, and I'm sure it's the same in football, but analytics in basketball is really detailed. And the last 10 years, the analytics has basically not eradicated, but minimum real restrictions on any mid-range in basketball. You either shoot threes or you get to the rim, because that's what the analytics, the statistics say is going to be the way to be most productive. And with kids, and even at an early age, coaches teach that. Just come down. Hey, if you're open, jack up the three. What used to be throughout my time as horrific shots, like ones where a coach would go, get your ass over here and sit next to me if you're going to take that rub. Nowadays, it's like a shot. Yeah. It's completely changed. What used to be a rubbish, really bad shot has become not bad. Yep, pick that up, Johnny. You do that's fire away. So and funny. I still think finding the balance to say, well, ultimately, when you get to older in your teens and certainly in the senior basketball, okay, I get the analytics and there is a place for that, but I think the biggest problem is at the younger age when you eradicate mid-range. I think it has particularly for really young kids, and although they bring the 3-point line in a little bit up until under 14.
Yep.
For some of them, because they focus on it, it can actually have a detrimental impact on their technique because that the effort that it takes to get there, they're doing things that are not fundamentally sound. So trying to find that balance where you're focusing on these other areas where when they're looking at it and say, well, what do you want me to do that? Steph doesn't do that, you know? And I say, well, you're not Steph. You want to be Steph. You've got to build up to that. So it is a challenge for coaches because of the way the game's played and in particular the NBA, like you say, that's so accessible. They're just coming down. And I'll be honest, some games I really struggle to watch because I like the strategy.
Yep.
There's a lot of just come down and jack it up.
There's a lot of one-on-one, and you're right. It's not entertaining. It's
correct.
Not entertaining to watch. Yeah, it's stand around, wait 20 seconds, and then jack it
three
and
up.
you take 1,000 dribbles and dribble, and you got 4 guys standing around doing nothing.
Yeah. There's no creativity.
I mean,
I love that. I can appreciate the talent because some of the things they do is amazing. But after a while, it's like, well, I'd like to see other forms and the way in which
I'd say watching the NBL is actually for me more exciting in terms of watching that team balance and offensive patterns and
correct.
It's actually a lot more exciting to watch. The defense is a lot harder too. Like it just seems like it's more of a quicker game because you're right. The NBA stands around, whereas the NBL actually moves a lot more.
Reliant on strategic and plays, things like that, rather than individuals to just jack up threes or drive to the hole.
100%. The concern I have is that the NBL is sort of in between what the NBA is and what Europe is.
Yep.
If you look at European games, they are even more, they are methodical in the way in which they go down there. They don't play at the same pace. And I think right now the NBL is in that nice sweet spot. Yep. But there are there is a tendency that to be heading more towards an NBA, which hopefully it doesn't go that path. But there are signs there that are a bit of a worry. Fortunately, the best team in the competition over the last 10 years, the Perth Wildcats, are not that.
Yes,
they are methodical. I love to watch them play because of the way they create shots, not just the shots that they take.
Yep.
Who even doesn't help that on the weekend, although it is an all-star game and it's a bit of fun, but Dame Lillard and Steph Curry were having basically a shoot-off from half court.
Yeah.
Can't watch it.
It's crazy.
I mean, like you said, though, the talent of Lillard to be able to hit jump shots from halfway, amazing. Correct. But it's not good to watch.
And if they start drowning those like consistently, and the stats, as you say, start saying, well, you know what? Well, what's it going to do? It's going to make the game just a shootout, which is kind of just the Globetrotters were fun, but there's a reason that they're not the number one comp, right?
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. And that to me, that All-Star game, in my view, does more harm to the game than good. Yeah, we love to see the stars, but just they make a mockery of it. And you see those shots, which you go, and I'm going, crikey, he actually knocked that down. But as far as competitiveness, as far as being a real contest, it is not that, and it's sad because if you go back and look at some of the contests when MJ was playing and Magic were there and Larry, they it was an all-star game, but there was still some respect to the game and way in which they went about and played. So it's a shame. I understand why. When you got someone paying $300 million. Mm-hmm. You go, well, hang on, we don't want this slap and tickle if someone gets hurt in that environment. I get why, but it makes it for tough viewing when you see what they dish up.
The concept last year worked, how it kind of went to the competitive score.
It did in the last – yes, you're right.
Last year worked, but then this year kind of didn't work at all.
Didn't quite
got a bit silly. But let's get back to the NBL. You obviously played through – I would suggest the golden era in the 90s. I remember going to packed Rod Laver Arena, 15,000 people there. And And then when I was kind of growing up at an early teenager in early 2000s, it kind of had that dip.
Yep.
Where do you see the game now growing? Well, first of all, two-part question. What was it like playing in those 90s era where it was amazing, played against guys who now have sons playing in the NBA? And then, now kind of the state of the game now.
It was fantastic. It was this wave of excitement, and there was a real sporting, cultural thing about basketball. And a lot of it was driven by Aunt Michael and what he was doing in the States, and the way in which he was transforming the game. Here in Australia, we got caught up in that. So I think a lot of the success was also coincided with the way in which the NBA was being seen over here. Unlike it is today, as you know, you couldn't just watch a game, you couldn't get an NBA game, but you'd hear about it, and these bits and pieces you'd see on television with Michael, where either by the highlights or a game of the week that you used to see. That's about all you used to get to see. So to be a part of that, and part of that generation that came through, where all of a sudden we're playing in the tennis center in front of 15,000 people, and there was a landmark moment that happened in the early 90s. We were playing against the Magic at the tennis center on a Friday night.
Yep.
And there was 15,500 people. And I think on the same night, Fitzroy was still alive back then.
Yep.
Fitzroy were playing North Melbourne at the MCG, which is literally a 5-iron from where the tennis center was. And they had like 6,000 people at the game. And everyone thought, from a basketball perspective, we've arrived.
What a win.
This is going to be it. And absolutely, they had 3 or 4 unbelievable years. And I think, in fairness, I think the AFL in particular, other sports saw a lot of the things that basketball was doing, that in a way it wasn't just about the game, it was about the entertainment package that you'd provide. All those things had a profound impact. And I think it made other sports adopt many of the things that basketball was doing, in the way in which they were getting to schools, the way in which they were marketing the game, all those things. Unfortunately for basketball, it didn't have the foundation that it needed in order to continue on. So it went through some challenging years. But I think the last 5 years are as every bit as good as what it was back in those so-called halcyon days. The talent that we have, the media exposure, the attendances, the facilities that every team plays at now are every bit as good as what it was back then. So I think that we've actually reached a point where now as we continue to grow, this era is going to be hopefully the start of another push to get the game even to greater heights.
You mentioned the last 5 years, and we've noticed that we go to games when we can, and I started to go to a lot of the South Dragon games when South Dragons were around.
Yep.
And there seemed to be a buzz around that at that time, and then they won, and then they folded after they won that year, famously, and
the 5-game series that was
and then now, as you say, it's picked back up, and I know NBL. Obviously, as I mentioned before, we've been following it since we were kids, and kind of has a special place for us as kids growing up. But then you see it go through a struggle period.
Yeah.
And then now, in the last 5 years, like you said, you see us playing against NBA teams in the preseason.
Yeah.
And going over there, and then them coming here and playing in games, exhibition games. You kind of feel a bit proud about it. What do you think that turnaround has been to pick it back up?
Yeah, I think what it's been is, and a lot of credit to the owner of the league right now is a guy called Larry Kesselman.
Yeah.
And 5 or 6 years ago, the league was not in great shape. I don't think it was bad as what the perception made it out to be, but it was not in great shape. And he came in and threw a lot of resources at it, restructured the competition, got new ownership groups involved, and put forward a product that not only was attractive to fans, but also attractive to investors. And since that time, the ownership that we've got with our clubs has been extraordinary. Really high level, high quality owners that not only bring their financial resources, but they bring their IP in regards to marketing and the way in which the game is presented. And because of that, over this, I think one of the things that has stuck out the most is the way in which they've been able to attract better talent.
Yep.
So if you look at the talent, and I'm talking about import talent, that we had 6 or 7 years ago, it was good, but nowhere near the level of talent. Most players that are coming into our league now that are imports have had NBA experience or have been on the cusp of the NBA. Or they're these prodigies that have come through that, like LaMelo Ball, that is going to be an NBA star. So we're lucky that we've been able to get some incredible talent. And like whatever it is, whether it's a cup of tea, a pair of shoes, you're only as good as your product. You can dress it up whatever way you like. But I think to get to the answer to your question is that attracting greater ownership and better resources and getting more people to watch the games has enabled the clubs to recruit better talent, which has made the product better. And as such, it grows from there.
You talk about the talent coming from the NBA. I listened to an interview last night in prep for this of your old mate, Leonard Copeland, who was at the Clippers, before he, through other means as well, but before he came, and he was playing alongside Steph Curry's dad at the time, and then had some injuries and stuff, and then got cut from there. But it seems to be a pathway, or has been some sort of a pathway for a long time. So in terms of the pathway from those NBA players and having those bigger names coming and as like almost like a test market, and you look all the way back to the 90s and seeing players coming over. Why do you think that us over China, Europe, what's the reason that players are going to choose us?
It's a really good question because we still, even though our game's improved, we still cannot compete well with the money in Europe or China. Yep. Most players, most international players that are playing in China are on well in excess of 500,000 US a season, and many of them are on over a couple of million. Yep. And similarly in Europe, those really elite high-level guys are getting enormous salaries. But if you look at a player, for example, you take the teams this year, just so it's current, and you look at the Brisbane Bullets, a guy they recruited a player called Victor Law. Victor Law is his name. 6'7", 6'8", really versatile. Played for the Orlando Magic last season and was in the hub with the Orlando Magic. Now he could have generated greater personal income by playing in China or playing in Europe. But there are two things that stick out, and the reasons why they choose it is one is the style of play. Like I said earlier, it's heading more towards the way the NBL is played. The other thing is when you come here, you are playing in first-class facilities with really high-level coaching. So as great as it is in some parts of the world, there is some cockamamie ideas on the way in which the game should be played. Yeah. And you get with these programs and you go, what is this all about? But they know you don't have to deal with those things. And because of that, they feel that this is a better pathway to get back to the NBA. So you can come here. You're not going to do yourself any harm by coming to Australia. You do well here, and people in the United States will take notice of it. Yep. Whereas if you go and do well, there's guys playing in China right now. They're averaging 40 a game. But it's not as meaningful as averaging and doing well, here. You average 17 points a game in the right system with the right team and playing the right style of play. That'll be much more meaningful to an NBA team than someone's averaging 40 a game. So it's I think those are the main reasons they choose to come here and invest in themselves rather than if they're just going for the big hit and trying to make more money, well, then this is probably not the place for them. But if they're investing in themselves to continue to grow and learn and finding a pathway back to the NBA, it's proven to be a good one.
Yeah. You mentioned, that's kind of established players trying to get back in. You mentioned the young development stars program that LaMelo Ball is pretty much the pin-up boy for it now. Is that something the NBL should really focus on the next couple of years, trying to get maybe high school kids to come out here and play, obviously, because the college system over there's a lot of problems there with not getting paid and that kind of thing. Is that something the NBL should focus on? Because now it's proven to be a success. They're probably going to have the NBA Rookie of the Year who played here before.
Yeah, no, and that is a great story. And one that sort of goes by the wayside is the other guy that came in here is RJ Hampton, who's he's still doing really well in his rookie season. He's not at the same level as LaMelo, but he's at Denver and been doing quite well. But you're talking about, 19-year-old kids. They're 19 and 20. They're still babies, but they chose this route. And absolutely the NBL are focusing and would love to continue to do that and get those players. The problem that they've got is that the NBA has recognised what Australia is trying to do.
Yep.
And they changed the rules in the G League. So right now they've got this academy team that plays in the G League.
Yep.
And they are taking those players, providing them with former NBA players and like an academy at which they play in. And here's the kicker, paying them really, really well. So they're paying, and some of the guys are on just to play in this league, anywhere between $300,000 to $500,000 US.
Yep.
So it's a lot of money, and that makes it really hard for us to compete with that.
Yes.
We're saying, come out here, we'll give you a couple of $100,000 Australian dollars. By the way, you got to pay tax on that. And
you lose a bit when you go back to America too.
Correct. The exchange rate is kills you. So only those that and I think because of the success of LaMelo and RJ and others, that Torrey Craig is another one that didn't come straight out of. He actually went to college, came here and worked his way back. Brian Bowen played for me when I was a coach. So there's been a good chunk of players that have worked their way into the NBA via the NBL. So only those that are really doing it to think that this is going to provide them with a good education, a basketball education, that is, playing in a beautiful country in beautiful stadiums with really good coaching. It's going to be hard to get the LaMelo Balls when they can sign up to the G League team and make $300,000 or $400,000. It's going to be really difficult. But we've got Australians. Josh Giddey is an Australian. The Australian kids, though, there are still plenty of those coming through that potentially have that same ability.
Right. The other side of that is you've had obviously got imports that have come to Australia who then establish a life here. So you got Bryce Cotton's now, I think, trying to get naturalised. Is he?
I think it's been approved.
Been approved, yeah.
So happy days. I think it is. Last word is it's taking a while, but I believe he's got approval, and they're trying to get that through so he can come into consideration to represent Australia in Tokyo.
Yes, at the Tokyo, yes. So then you've got him. You had obviously Leonard stayed. You had Kevin Lisher that represented Australia. And then you had players in the 90s who stayed and then have now
made families
who now have sons playing in the NBA.
Ben Simmons is a great example of that.
Cecil Exum kid, Dante Exum. You got Ben Simmons kid. There's Bruce Bolden's kid played in the NBA. There's been a lot of those dads that came over here that still live here. They love it. They have no intention of going back. And they're Australians, and that's right. That's one of the things about coming here is they love the country, they love the culture, and they feel safe. And a lot of them right now, Vic Law is a good example, saying, "Hang on, these blokes got no COVID."
Yeah,
going over here, I go and make $550 a year, I make $300 here, and I go, well, that I'm safe and I'm in a nice environment.
The lifestyle's great.
That has, and that's actually what happened with Bryce Cotton. He was playing in Turkey, and there was some bomb scare or whatever, something happened. He said, "No, I'm out of here," and he said, "Let me try Australia." and he came here, loved it,
Yep.
and has stayed ever since.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, just on that, we talk about having kids, and now you in the one golden era. It almost seems like we're transitioning to potentially another little golden era of Australian basketball, competing in Olympics for potentially gold medals.
Sure.
Where do you see the team in the next couple of years with Tokyo and hopefully Ben Simmons playing, Dante Exum, those kind of guys, Thon Maker, all playing hopefully in the next couple of years and building towards potentially an Olympic medal?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. Is exactly that. We're not just now saying, well, let's go and all the stars align and good things happen and we might sneak in and win a bronze medal. That's realistically how you've looked at it in the past.
Yep.
We can look every other team in the eye, including the United States, and legitimately, not some fanciful dream, legitimately be considered a prospect to win a gold medal.
Yep.
And I'm not talking about the third or fourth tier guys. I'm talking about the top dogs coming representing the USA and LA guys coming together representing Australia.
Yeah.
And we could win a gold medal. But the margin between winning and losing, you look at Spain, you look at France, you look at ourselves. Believe it or not, even, there are Lithuania, there are some countries Croatia, that have been knocking on the door that are right there as well. So there is no margin for error.
Yep.
But we are as good a chance as any to win a gold medal, not just a medal. We've never done that before. We've finished fourth, I think, 5 times throughout our history in the Olympics. So we've been close. And last one, we got robbed. We should have. We got absolutely robbed, and we should have had a bronze medal. But the only thing that worries me about this one is because the NBA season is going so long, and you look at Philadelphia, who have got Ben, who would be a big part of that claim to have a chance to win a gold medal.
Yep.
If they go all the way through to the championship season, they're going to finish like a week before the Olympics starts.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you look in the West, and you got Joe Ingles, and you look at the Utah Jazz, who are killing it. I mean, they've only lost 7 games or something all year.
Yeah.
They've got the best record in the West. If both those teams go all the way through, and you take out Ben, you take out Joe, we're still really good, but we're not. We need all our guys there.
Yeah.
Do you think that back to the NBL, getting talent? What about I remember watching South Dragons, Joe Ingles playing. In the NBL, you got Delhi that's gone over there as well. What about losing our talent to the NBA starting to become more prevalent in the thing? How do we stop that from happening? It's sort of like the cricket versus footy story that you always used to hear, where someone was amazing at cricket but then chose footy, or vice versa. Right? Yeah. You always hear that. Is there a way we can hold these guys and keep them in Australia?
Not for the uber talented. Yeah. We've got an 18-year-old kid, another son of one of my teammates, Josh Giddey, who's playing right now.
Yep.
He didn't go the college route. He's playing with the Adelaide 36ers, and he's likely to be a first-round draft pick.
Yep.
We actually encourage that, and we promote the fact that we're trying to do everything we can to get our guys over there in the NBA, because it is life-changing.
Yep.
The money that these guys are making. Now, throughout the course of, and it's funny to even say, but if you think of the course of Ben Simmons' career, he is likely to earn $1 billion.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like his last contract was $350 million, I think, or something of that order, US dollars.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
So that's getting, that might be 600 or 700. That's on top of that 100 he's already made.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
So, we are never going to be a league. In fact, no league in the world is going to be able to stop the absolute uber talent going there. Yep. But the challenge for us is to continue to have a program that develops that type of talent.
Yeah, is it to stop them from going to college?
The next run under that, if you've got this wave of players that are there, even those that aren't quite at that level are still going to be really, really good.
Yes.
And still have great product for the domestic competitions here. And it's not just the States. We've got some guys running around in Europe as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of competition for talent in basketball, and even domestically, your sport, the way you guys, the competition that we have,
for sure.
We have lost a lot of talent.
Yeah, we've taken a lot of basketballers.
Absolutely.
To the AFL, and it's happening in men's and women's at the moment.
Yeah. For 100%.
Yeah.
And it's one that it's tough because we don't. I personally say, well, they have to choose their path. But another one of my team, Mark Radke, had 2 sons, and his son played basketball and football, was really good. Made a under 18 state team, was on a path to be certainly an NBL player and possibly something else. But, definitely, absolutely an NBL 6'8", 6'9", really good athlete. He gets to 17 years of age, 18 years of age, and the footy club's coming. The last time he kicked a football was when he was 13 or something, or 14.
Yeah.
Hadn't played footy for 4 years, but just saw these raw skills and gets thrown, has 4 AFL teams competing hard to sign him. A guy that hadn't seen kick a football since he was 13 or 14, and he eventually signed with the Melbourne Football Club and absolutely has loved it. He hasn't been to the seniors yet, but this is his 3rd year now. Of learning the game.
Did you say his name then? So did you say his name? Who was that?
Austin Bradke.
Bradke. Yeah, sorry.
So he's on the Melbourne list right now.
Yeah.
But came from very, he played junior footy a little bit, but not at men's level. But they recruiting just the raw product. Yeah. So he's an athlete, and we'll turn him into football players.
Yeah.
And it's hard because, he gets well compensated for that.
Yeah. So one on that is I played school basketball against Corey Maynard, and he went to college, and I thought, because we played in a tournament together and actually against each other in the final, and I thought, this kid's a gun, he's going to go play basketball, which he did. He played college, comes back, and then just chooses AFL.
Yes.
So
he did come back. He played for Townsville. One season or two, and then said, no, his brother was doing really well. So I guess they see the genetics there and say, well, let's recruit him.
Yeah.
I think it was Melbourne that picked.
Melbourne picked him up. Yeah. And he played there. I mean, there's only Craig Muller did the other way. He went, is it Freo, and then he
was basketball, went to footy.
Went to footy and then went back.
And then came back, and he's been a really solid player.
Yes.
I think he could have been if he had stuck with footy, but just for whatever reason, he at a very young age said, this may not be for me, and came back to basketball, and he was able to find his way. But there's been a lot of, if I go back in my time and I see some, because I got to cut, because when I finished, now I'm that old, I saw a lot of these guys. If you think of Scott Pendlebury, was a really, really, really good basketball player.
Yep.
Jack Watts.
I played against Jack too. Yeah, he was a superstar.
I mean, he was one I thought when I saw him in the under-16 level, he has a chance to play for Australia one day. I mean, he is that good. And was on that path and was just a natural. But he chose a different direction, and it worked out well for both. I mean, obviously those 2 guys. That it worked out really well for. But that's when you think of the NBA. Yeah, we've got that competition in Europe and even Asia now. They're playing. So we've got a lot of competition, but probably during those formative years, and it's footy is just as big a threat.
Well, you won Paddy Mills. He's always talked about to be a real gun footy player as well growing up, and then he went.
Well, the story behind that one is that it was a sliding doors moment. Is that Paddy Mills wasn't selected to go to the AIS. Scott Pendlebury was.
Right.
And what happened was Scott Pendlebury went there. I think he went there for a week, 2 weeks before he said, "This is not for me. I'm going to go to footy." He left. That actually opened up a position which they gave to Paddy Mills. In that sliding door moment, if you think of, if Paddy Mills may not have become Paddy Mills, he might have, and Scott Pendlebury would have become Scott Pendlebury if Scott Pendlebury had decided to stay at the AIS and continue that
Wow.
continue that journey. So it's one of those ones that the fickle hand of fate works in mysterious ways.
That's amazing.
You had a pretty unconventional pathway as well, because am I right in saying that you began playing in Australia, NBL, and then or pro, and then went to college?
That's right. Well, back then, the NBL, we were ranked amateurs. I was playing for the Tigers, and we weren't very good. There was this transition going from amateurs to professionals, and my club team, the Tigers, we were one of the last. So we were getting our asses kicked in the NBL, but toiling away, playing for my dad. And yeah, we went on my club team, the Melbourne Tigers. We went on a tour. They were the greatest tours ever. Is that we'd go at the end of because we used to play in the winter, and the college season was from, say, October through to March.
Yep.
And at the end of our season, college programs would invite teams over for pre-season games. They wanted to prepare, so they'd bring teams over. So we were invited, the Melbourne Tigers. We went over and played in the Big East Conference, which is where Seton Hall, the school I went to, was located. So we played every team in the Big East Conference, and we were lousy here, but we actually won a couple of games. We beat Georgetown on that trip. We beat Connecticut on that trip, like big high-profile teams. And on the last game of that tour, because they had, back then the Big East had 9 teams, we played against Seton Hall. And we played this game, and we lost. They beat us, but I had 50 in the game. So we lost the game, and straight after, the coach of the team, PJ Carlissimo, who's really, really famous now. He wasn't so famous back then, but really famous now. He said, Andrew, can you come? We want it. We will scholarship. Come and play at Seton Hall. This is high level basketball. Blah blah blah. And back then, that was in '86. But my goal was the Seoul Olympic Games. So I said, no, I'd love to, but it's not right for me. And fortunately, they stuck at it. They kept recruiting me. Like literally once a week, the assistant coach, John Carroll, would call me up. And their phone book back then, it's not what it is now. Back then, a half-hour phone call was big bucks. Yeah. So they were calling me every week. And then finally, after the Seoul Olympic Games, our NBL season started early so we could go to Seoul, and then it was going back to the regular time. So there was this window of opportunity where I could actually go and play college basketball and after the Olympics and come back. And I was a lot older. I was 23 at the time. So, and it was there, and I took it up, and it turned out to be one of the greatest experiences in my life, where we got through to the championship game. So again, it was just right place at the right time, and incredible experience.
What was that? Because I was about to mention that. You made third team All Big East too, I think, that year, which was a pretty successful year. And then you've had the March Madness run to the championship. So what was that like? I mean, I'm a big watcher of it, March Madness. I think you are too. Just talk us through those moments of going through that whole process of.
It's really hard to articulate and explain to Australians who, we love our sport, particularly in Melbourne. We're fanatical about footy. I mean, it is just a complete focus on college basketball and on basketball. And whether you watch one single game or even follow any college teams, the whole nation focus in on this tournament. It's such the status. And as an Australian being over there, and as we were doing well, one, Seton Hall wasn't a really famous school back then, so no one knew where the hell we are. And back then, back in 1989, very few foreigners played in college basketball. So I was this outlier that's saying, well, there's this school and there's this guy from Australia. What the hell? They didn't even know where Australia is, let alone play basketball. Yeah. So it was this phenomenal experience where the eyes of the nation is on. And when you get to that Final Four, it is something, if you could, I mean, it's really hard to explain, and try and find a parallel here in Australia. But a grand final parade on AFL. Now, and I'm not trying to pump up that but just to try and find some sort of now. If you have that times 10, then you sort of understand the scrutiny, the eyeballs,
Yeah.
the audience when you're in the Final Four of
yeah.
an NCAA tournament. It is something that it's hard, like I say, hard to explain, and but just an incredible privilege that I got the chance to be a part of it.
Well, they played a couple of years ago in front of 100,000 at the stadium in Dallas.
At the Dallas Stadium. When I was there, we played. It's no longer there. It was called the Kingdome.
Yep.
So it's a football stadium in Seattle, and there's 55,000 there. Now, honestly, if you had the top row at the Kingdome watching that final, the game would have been a rumor. You would not have had any idea what's going on, but the atmosphere is something incredible.
So what's it like stepping out onto the court, as an Aussie, and then obviously, all these Americans and these crazy fans? What is that feeling like? Explain that the first time you've done that in front of 50,000.
It's really special, and it was you do get a sense that you're representing the school first and foremost, and you're there with your teammates, and you're doing all that. But because in that environment where they have these press conferences before, so each team comes in, and you have a slot, and myself and another one, a teammate of mine, and the coach, we were those selected, and there was literally 600 or 700 media. It wasn't like there was media in this hall. Was phenomenal. And because you're an Australian, you're something different. And they're trying to figure it out. So it was like this focus on me and the school. And because of just being something different, they're all looking for different angles, I got more attention than you'd normally deserve just because you're different. So it was the school tries to protect you from that. And it had a strong sense that I wasn't just representing the school and me, and that I did feel like, geez, I'm got the weight of a nation here, because they asked me so much stuff about Australia. And so I really did feel like there was this sense of representing not just myself, but the nation as well.
So then you fast forward a few years from there, you came back to Australia, you won 2 championships in the NBL, and then in the 1999, that was a lockout season too, I think, wasn't it?
It was.
The lockout season. You end up finding yourself on the Spurs and played with some greats there.
Yeah. First of all, how did that come about? How did the US trip back? We're going to go back to the States.
Yeah. I was in 1998, and I'm playing in the World Cup for Australia in Athens, Greece. So we're playing. And we were okay, but we never had a great tournament. We got through. I think we might have finished 6th or 7th, I think. And it was the day before. It was our second last game. And we're figuring out where we were playing. They play off the lower positions. Well, they did back then. They don't anymore, but we're playing off the lower positions back then. And I was there and just played this game. And it was a quarterfinal game, which is the greatest day for a basketball fan in the World Cup. You've got the top 8 nations, and it's straight knockout. Well, not knockout, but the winners go through the Final Four.
Yep.
So I never knew too much about it. The Spurs or San Antonio, didn't know anything. So I was there, and I was up in the stands, and I'd played in Greece before for a club team, Apollon. So a lot of the Greek media and press and that, they knew me. So they were coming up and wanting to talk to me about everything really. But I was there, and I was sitting there, and I was watching this, the first quarterfinal game in the stands, and we're there's this players section, but sort of other people and there's this guy, this thick sort of chunky sort of guy coming up, and I was by myself, and I'm thinking, this is someone coming wanting to have it. And I just wanted to watch the game. So it's probably me asking about why we're so shit house or whatever it might be. And so I'm there, and I'm sort of not there. And he comes up, and in a thick European accent, and he said, Andrew, what, can I have a chat? I'm like, here we go. And he sat down. He said, my name's whatever it was. He was a Polish guy, I later learned. My name's this, and this, and I am a scout for the San Antonio Spurs. And he said, if you look directly across the other side of the venue, the head coach of the team is Greg Popovich. And he has asked me to come over to here to talk to you to see if you have any interest in playing in the NBA. And he said he would like to come over and talk to you personally, but because of the lockout, coaches were not allowed to talk to anyone, they're even their own players. It was, and I looked at him and I thought, he's taking the piss. And I said to him, mate, do you know how old I am? I'm 33. You know, he says, yes. He said, with the Pop, with the team they've got, the veterans, he's watched you play. He thinks that you could, with your shooting, that you could be. And I said, mate, happy to have the chat. Here's my numbers. No worries. Appreciate it. General conversation, went away, and I thought that's it. There's no chance that anything's ever going to come of this. And sure enough, come back to Australia a couple of weeks later, reached out, and you still have an interest? Yeah, of course, if this is legitimate. And then it got to the start of the season and they'd made plans. So, yep, we're going to sign you. Now, they weren't allowed to technically sign me, but just trust. We promise you are going to be a San Antonio person. We're going to sign you. Minimum salary, by the way. Yeah. But still very comfortable. Not wasn't an issue. So beauty. And then 2 weeks before, we think, when's this lockout going to finish? When's this not going to? So I started to play with the Tigers because our season started, and I thought it was getting into early December. I'm thinking, this is my chance. This is cooked. It's not going to happen. But fortunately, it was towards just after Christmas. They settled. Yep. Came, sent me a contract, signed. I had to leave. We were going. In hindsight, it was going to be a championship year. I honestly, you know, everyone's a genius tonight. Yeah. It was probably going to be a championship year with the Tigers. We were playing great. We were going really well. And I ended up and leave. So it made that decision a little tougher. But the opportunity to go play in the NBA for a season was too good to refuse. So that's how it and I signed and I went over there. Before I'd signed, because of the lockout, I didn't even know. But before all I knew was Tim Duncan and David Robinson were there and Avery Johnson and Sean Elliott. But when I got there, that's when they signed Steve Kerr and Will Perdue, put the team together, and it's like, shit, this is going to be great. But the thing about it, the whole time, Greg Popovich was very honest and said, listen, I don't know how much you're going to play. But the respect I have for you is that I think that you're going to be the ultimate insurance policy. That if something happens, that I have confidence and faith that you can come in and play and give us that perimeter shooting. You know, very rarely does a season go by where someone's not out for a period of time. Not that it was any bad luck or anything, but no one got hurt. We remain injury-free. I don't know if in that year there might have been the odd 1 or 2 games where someone wasn't available. No one got hurt. And
that was it.
I didn't get to play too much, but I loved it. Loved every second that I was there.
Have you still got the ring?
I do have the ring. It's one of those ones that a lot of people, and if people come here, I don't mind people showing. I've never worn the ring. I feel a bit guilty about the ring because look up the most irrelevant player on a championship winning team, and there is a smiling face of me there, very happy. Because I had really, I'm smart enough to know. Room guy. I had very little to do with it from a on-court standpoint, but as you know, when you're playing, you've got to play your role. Yeah. And I think in that season, I might have played in 20, 21 games or something like that. So I didn't even play in that many games and didn't play in the final series. But you understand that you've got to, in order to get the ultimate success in a team sport, right down to the last person on the roster or list, as you guys would call it, if you're not playing a role, it's and that can be just with morale. It can be at practice, testing, making sure that you're at a level that keeps pushing the other guys. All those things you've got to do in order to have the success. So I feel really good about it. And I got a ring. because that's the way they do it. It's one of the things in the AFL I don't understand.
Yeah.
I was just about to bring that up. Yeah. I mean, you're saying the whole thing about playing your role. And I 100% agree with you. We have players that you might bat 35 deep that year, and then you only award 22 players. When you've got players who either play those 35,
Correct.
or you might have 6 or 7 more on your list who train against you and they prepare you to play, and they might be great people in the locker room that give you a bit of advice and give you feedback to then enable you to prove it, and everyone's a part of it. So it's great the NBA do that, because you see even trainers get rings, like everyone gets rings. Yeah. But in the AFL, only 22 get the medal plus a coach.
It doesn't help anyone either, because there's always a heartbreaking story of someone who wasn't. And if you brought that in, you wouldn't have those moments where some guy gets rubbed out or some guy gets injured the week before. Well,
here's the thing. I am considered, and again, I don't, I understand it. I'm considered an NBA championship winning player.
But I would look at you like that too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't. I understand my role and how it was to be, but I don't think it's fair that AFL players that may have played 15 games in a season, and their team goes on and win it, but you're not a premiership player. Yeah. Now, you didn't play in the premiership. I get that. And maybe there's other categories or other ways you could categorize it, but I think it's not reflective of the contribution that those people make in order to get to that championship. Yep. And it's something that I've never understood the logic, or because a lot of rusted on footy players aren't like you. If you're not there, bad luck, stiff shit. That's just the breaks the game. I don't subscribe to that.
No, I agree.
Mate, you might have been the bottom of the rung for the Spurs, mate, but you're the greatest of all time Australian basketball player.
I'm not sure about that, but I appreciate it.
We love it. We love that you're here, mate. We really appreciate having you on and you spending the time. And next time we'll get you in the studio, or we might come have a hit of golf with you.
Oh, I'm not. Again, you'd want to bring a lot of balls. It's funny. It's a funny story about. I remember. And one of the privileges of what I've had is when through the basketball, that you get invited to all these things. And it was about, it would have been 10, 15 years ago, I had the chance to play it was before one of the Masters here. There was Damien Oliver, Shane Warne, and Greg Norman, and I were a 4 in the, when they play the day before the tournament starts, celebrity round.
Pro-am thing.
Pro-am, that's it. Yep. And I was in, Greg Norman here. I'd never met Greg Norman before, and I was there, and I was on the putting green, and all the pros, and they actually saw my putter, and this guy, they have all the stands that are there. Odyssey putters? You ever heard of the Odyssey putters? Yes. Yep. So I'm playing with some thing, and the guy from the Odyssey putter, came up to me and said, "What the hell are you playing with?" I said, "Oh, this is me." Like, that's rubbish. You're embarrassing yourself. So he gave me an Odyssey putter. So I picked up a new putter because of it. But then the great man walks in. He's coming onto the green, and we were there, and I'm like a bit nervous, and he comes up, and we shake hands, and I was trying to deflect, saying, "Mate, I'm shit house." And he's there, and he said, "Oh, that's okay, Andrew." He sort of, what I thought was just joking. He said, "Well, Andrew, just understand, mate, I don't like looking for balls." And I am, a jovial sort of happy-go-lucky guy. And I said to him, "Well, if you don't hit him in there, we won't have to go look for him." I thought that was some of the comedy gold of the highest quality. All right?
That's brilliant. Yeah.
Perfect. And he looked at me, and you know how someone gives you a bit of the stink eyes and say, "That shit ain't funny," I thought, oh, fuck, this is my first moment with Greg Norman, and I've absolutely stuffed it, trying to be a bit of a lad, just having a bit of a laugh. But then we went up and we started to play. The greatest guy, he was lining up all my parts, telling me what to do. Just one of the great privileges of being out there, of having those experiences. And I was no good, but that the time I spent, and with Warnie and Dame, was just one of the highlights of the privileges you get when you you know, you do these types of things. So
He's got one of the best rigs too of an
yeah.
older bloke. Yeah.
oh, geez, and is he
Dominate.
packing some punch? My
Yeah.
God, it's days.
Yes, apparently he's done a few little nudie photo shoots as well. I think he knows it.
God,
He knows
that's
he's
extraordinary.
Yeah.
I mean, that has its own circulatory system. It was incredible. But anyway, hey, what? Good on you, fellas. I appreciate it.
Thank you
Anytime
for
you
that,
want to chat,
Gazzy.
happy to have a chat. Good luck with the
Awesome.
program.
Appreciate
you for
it,
that,
mate.
mate.
Thanks so much for coming on.
all right, guys. Great chat there with Gazy, mate.
Absolute legend.
How good is he?
Love
He,
it.
he could tell stories, and you can listen to that all day.
What a bloke.
But thank you for listening, guys. Thank you to JBL and Colonial, two great sponsors of the show.
Yeah,
mate.
use the code TPATC25
Yes.
for 25% off at
Yep.
checkout.
Other than that, on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to us, please. The more subscribes we get and the reviews, the better it is.
Yeah, and listen to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and leave a review on the Apple Podcasts, and subscribe and all those good things. Tell people about us.
Yes.
Follow us on Instagram, the pros and the cons. Tell us who you want to see next. We're trying to get anyone and everyone on this show.
Yep. But don't bombard them. Bombard us.
Yeah.
DM us if you want
DM
them on the
us.
show.
Yeah.
Not
Don't
them.
go too hard.
Don't go
at
telling
something.
them that you want them on the show. Just message us.
A little bit, doesn't it?
But thank you again, guys.
See you next week.